Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of League Chat with the Stat. I'm your host Stat, and thank you so much again for joining me for another week, another very interesting week in the NRL, and a lot of very great games being played on the weekend. Let's get straight into it. Let's discuss the NRL ladder, and I'll have that up on the screen for you now. So, in outright first is the Penrith Panthers on 25 points. Second is the Storm on 24, Eagles third on 22, and Roosters fourth on 18, which sums up the top four. Tying with Roosters on 18 is Canberra Raiders. You've got Knights in sixth on 17 points. You've got the Sharks and the Rabbitohs sitting seventh and eighth on 16 points as well. Now, a bit of a gap between 8th and 9th here. So 9th are the Tigers, once again, on 12 points, tied with the Seagulls at 10th on 12 points as well. The Dragons and the Warriors are on 10 points at 11th and 12th. The Titans are 13th on 8. You've got the Cowboys and the Broncos on 6 points each. And the mighty Bankstown Bulldogs still last on 4 points, which sums up the NRL ladder. Now, let's get straight into it, guys. Now, the Melbourne Storm 24 defeated the Roosters 6 on Thursday night. And a very, very interesting contest from the Melbourne Storm. It seemed like there was no Cameron Munster and no Cameron Smith, which meant there was no worries for the club. They played very well. I thought Jerome Hughes was fantastic in leading that side from 5/8. Just getting Ryder Jacks to do his part and letting the forwards and the backs do their bit for him to be able to control everything that happened. Now, considering, as I said, no Munster and no Cameron Smith, they're big losses for Melbourne Storm. I mean, with the way they were going, I thought they could go on another 80 minutes and just smash the Roosters. But look, you can't rule out the Storm for the premiership. They are still in the hunt. And look, as we discussed, I mean, they're still in the top four. They're coming second now. They've topped Parramatta, who lost on the weekend, which we'll get to in a moment. But they're playing very good football. And I thought Ryan Papenhuyzen, again, was exceptional. You know, he's only a young kid. He's played less than 50 games and he's really making his mark in the NRL. And I'm excited to see, just to get to watch his career unfold as the years go on. So it's very exciting. Now for the Roosters, man, it's really unlucky, isn't it? They have 11 of their starting 13 players injured. Some are out for the season. Some will be back within the next few weeks. But on top of losing to Storm without Munster and Smith, they lost Luke Keary to a rib injury. Thank God that he got cleared from any internal bleeding. They lost Lachlan Lamb, who went down with an ankle syndesmosis injury. And then they lost Mitch Orbison to a wrist injury, which is out for another 4 to 6 weeks. Now, the injury list is a huge concern for the Roosters, and this is unfamiliar territory for Trent Robinson and his men. But, look, as I said, it was a very, very tough loss. Again, when you lose both your halves, there's really no direction for the Roosters at all. But, look, I thought that considering with the injuries they had, I thought they played okay. I'm surprised Storm didn't absolutely just smash him out of the water. It was a relatively decent scoreline, 24 to 6. Obviously, it wasn't the close games that we usually like to see. But it could mean that Sonny Bill will return in the next few weeks, with him being the big signing and being out of quarantine as of last Thursday. Just some players I wanted to highlight. I thought Jake Friend having to play 80 minutes was a big effort from him, and racking up a good 60 amount of tackles. So no misses either, so he played pretty well. And the standout for me for Melbourne was Christian Welch. 19 runs, 190 metres, 86 post-contact metres with 3 offloads and 32 tackles. And a big performance, and we're going to talk about Christian Welch a little later in the podcast. But look, Storm 24-6, they deserved it, and now they're just chasing Penrith's tail to get outright first. Speaking of Penrith, Panthers defeating the Warriors 18 points to 12 on the weekend, and it was a very scrappy game. The weather obviously played a big part in that, and it was just so good to watch another scrappy game that go down to the wire. I thought the Panthers, again, another impressive performance. Brent Naden, again, playing well on that wing. But you look at that left edge and it's just unreal with Josh Mansell and Stephen Crichton playing out of their skin, and especially with Jerome Luai and William Kikau down that side as well. Just playing such awesome football. Now, you got to feel for the Warriors. I mean, Cleary put through 6 repeat sets for their team to finally crack over and score. Warriors defended the first 15 minutes and they made a overall in the game, they made over 100 tackles, more than the Panthers, and they had 11 less sets. To only lose 18-12 is a pretty scrappy, but a pretty good effort as well from the Warriors. Now, yeah, look, they did play sloppy football, but they defended 6 or 7 sets straight. No, I thought it was a huge effort and definitely would have taken the wind out of all of them, especially with that pressure that Cleary was applying. But I thought Coruscant, again, just tearing it up another gear. I thought it was solid. I thought it was fantastic. Now, the standouts for me in this game, again, Tohu Harris, 15 runs, 142 metres, 61 post-contact metres and 58 tackles in 80 minutes. Again, just another week I mentioned him, just how phenomenal he has been. James Tarmo, 20 runs, 182 metres, 84 post-contact metres and 26 tackles, along with James Fisher-Harris with 21 runs, 186 metres, 83 post-contact metres with 2 tackle breaks and 38 tackles. Big effort again from the middle at the Penrith forward pack and playing so well up in the middle. And you can see that these stats are obviously showing that Penrith can just march up the field and just take over any opposition and be able to get those backs to do what they need to do to score those tries. So, look, again, Warriors were unlucky to lose that game. To only have to lose 18-12, was not bad. Again, considering the fact that they did make over 100 more tackles than Penrith did and have 11 less sets. So, look, Penrith 18-12 to the Warriors, and a pretty decent game overall. Now, the Dragons 14 actually shocked the Eagles 12 on Friday night. It's a good way for McGregor to get sent off with a win, seeing as though they had been there for about 6 or 7 years and had over 25 years with the club as a whole and his involvement there. I thought it was a good way to send him off. And Dragons had to dig very deep for that clash to win that one. Now, the Dragons, as I said, they were pretty solid. And they got away with 2 lucky penalties, I've got to admit. That high tackle that hit him that clipped on the chest, but then moved up to the chin. Didn't think it was a high tackle, which was a tough call. But as well, I mean, Eagles made too many basic errors. I don't think the attitude was there. But the thing that really frustrated me from that game is, again, the bunker. There's 2 no tries, 1 for each side. Now, the one for Reid Marnie, I watched that replay over and over and over, and I could look at every possible angle there was. I didn't see that the ball was on the line. A little bit controversial. Pull me up on it if you think otherwise. But I definitely thought that was a try, and the Eels were unfortunately robbed of that one. But as well, the try that the Dragons scored, I thought was a tough call as well. Calling a knock on, but if the ball was still in his hands, I thought that was pretty stupid. It did take it away from the game. But look, as I said, even that, Eels had too many basic errors. 2 or 3 fifth tackle options were very bad, especially when they dropped those, one in the first half and a couple in the second half as well. So, look, again, the Eels needed that loss. I think it was a loss that they needed to lose so that they can gain some momentum leading up into the finals. But Clint Gutherson, 34 runs, 369 metres, is the most metres that has been made by any player, and actually beat Tuivasa-Sheck by 1 or 2 metres all up. To go with that, it was a tackle break and 2 offloads and even a try. Gutherson played absolutely out of his skin on Friday night, and he's been playing well for him. For the Eels as well, the other highlights for me was RCG. Regan Campbell-Gillard, 14 runs, 159 metres, 75 post-contact metres and 23 tackles. Now, with that as well, Nathan Brown, 16 runs, 192 metres, 81 post-contact metres, a tackle break and 44 tackles. And that was the highlights for me for the Eels. Now for the Dragons, Blake Lowry starting up prop, taking up the spot of Paul Vaughan in that game. 16 runs, 214 metres, 94 post-contact metres with 3 tackle breaks and 41 tackles. Massive effort. But the 2 men that have been leaders for this club for a little while now, Tyson Frizzell, 17 runs, 172 metres, 78 post-contact metres with a tackle break, offload and 32 tackles. A big effort. And the last one, Cameron McInnes. 17 runs, 172 metres like Frizzell with 64 post-contact metres and 58 tackles. Huge effort from Cameron McInnes once again. Made almost over 150 tackles the last few games. And he's been playing out of his skin since moving to lock, which allows Ben Hunt to go to 9. So look, as I said, Dragons 14 to the Eagles 12. and it was a good way, as I said, to send off McGregor, and all the best to McGregor and his future endeavours. Now the Sharks defeating the Titans 30 points to 18, and I thought this clash was very entertaining up until the biting incident, which I'll get to in about 30 seconds or so. But that send-off clearly ruined the Titans. They were 12-all, they were still in the game. The Titans got off to a very good start, and then basic errors allowed the Sharks to come back in, and then they got the scores evened out. But I thought, now that we're onto it, that bite, I didn't see enough of the chomp on his arm. Now, obviously the ref called because Johnson accused Proctor of biting his arm. What I found interesting was that the ref didn't look at the bite marks, and I thought that he just saw there was a bit of red, could have been from anything, and then made the call to send off Proctor for the first time anyone's ever been sent off for a bite, which was very interesting. But as I said, that ruined the Titans' momentum, and Sharks went and piled on another 3 tries. On top of that, they lost Jai Arrow and Dale Copley. Jai Arrow, they lost him to a shoulder injury, potentially out for the year, and Dale Copley has tore his pec, which will be out for the year as well. So on top of that, they had 14 men, and they had 1 man off the bench to use in that game, which was very unlucky. But look, while we're talking about it, Sean Johnson, at the moment, I think he's in the form of his career. I think he's been playing exceptional football, especially over the last 8 weeks. And it's been a pleasure to see Sean Johnson just roam about and make things look so easy. The Warriors have been begging for that for so long, but he made the move to Cronulla, took some time to adjust, jumped in late in the preseason last year, and ever since then had a bit of a rough start at the beginning, but has really found some form, and that's why the Sharks are scoring so many points. But look, the highlights for me, CSC for Talakai, another big 80-minute performance from him. 21 runs, 221 metres, 78 post-contact metres, 4 tackle breaks, a line break, 3 offloads, and 25 tackles, as well as a try. Now, very big effort from him. And another player who's been under the radar recently, Brian Kelly from the Titans, who has really played some decent football over the last month or so. 20 runs, 215 metres, 64 post-contact metres, 9 tackle breaks, 2 line breaks, 3 line break assists, and 2 offloads. A huge game from Brian Kelly, and a game I reckon that he would have wanted to win, so a bit unlucky there. But let's on to the next game. The Rabbitohs 31 defeating the Cowboys 30, and this was a very entertaining game. A game where I thought Cowboys could have actually won that, and won that easily. Now, it was as I said, a very entertaining game. Adam Reynolds absolutely stepped it up, and that chip and chase in the beginning was beautiful. Obviously caught the defensive fullback not in his position, and too near the line, in the defensive line, and put that chip over the top and scored. I thought that was fantastic from Adam Reynolds, but he played a solid game as well. Now, the Cowboys did play better, but I mean, they should have won that game. Cole Felt missed 4 or 5 kicks, and that truly cost them the game. They lost by 1. Now, because of those missed kicks, it kept giving opportunities for Bunnies to actually to make some big plays and score some very important tries. Now, with that also being said, the Cowboys, I just thought that their attitude was better than last week, but still wasn't where it needed to be. Now, as I said, they allowed the Bunnies to come back. They were up by 6 with plenty of time, and then they got up when the Rabbitohs scored that try, and then they missed that kick. They were still up by 2, but then they gave away a stupid penalty with Felt's arm in the tackle, which again, he had a very, very bad game, and that only made it worse. And Reynolds kicked it from the sideline to make it 30-all, to then march up the field and kick the field goal. I mean, a lot of stupid decisions that were made there by the Cowboys, and they were the only worst enemy at the end of the day. But I think from the analysing of the Rabbitohs game, I found that the Rabbitohs aren't really a threat. They were down a lot of that game to the Cowboys, and they haven't been playing their best football. Now, I think they're lacking a bit of punch in the forward pack, and they'll get that in Jai Arrow next year. But until then, the backs are performing well, but they're not consistent enough, and Wayne Bennett needs to get them firing for the finals. But I think one player I want to talk about was Alex Johnston. I mean, he scored another 2 tries on Saturday night, and how Rabbitohs can't find salary cap space for him, I mean, they must be crazy. He's got 5-6 clubs chasing him at the moment, and he's playing too good football. His football has been fantastic. He's been playing so well, and he's playing too well for him to not be signed. I believe he's chasing that 100 try mark for the Rabbitohs as well. So honestly, with the way he's going, he could potentially hit that before he leaves at the end of the season. Now, two players that really stood out for me was Keon Koloamatangi, who has been a fringe back rower for the Rabbitohs his first year. 11 runs, 136 metres, 71 post-contact metres, a tackle break, offload and 27 tackles. It was a big effort from him off the bench. But I thought a player that was better for the Cowboys was Michael Morgan. 2 tries, he has 7 tackle breaks, an offload, 16 tackles. And he only had 1 missed tackle this game. Last week he had about 7 or 8. And he put in his mind that defensively he wanted to improve, and he did that. And he also assisted them with 2 tries as well. So he played very well, Michael Morgan, and good to see him kick into gear straight after his injury. Now, the Raiders 36 defeating the Broncos 8, and it was a slow start from the Raiders. Broncos had enough ball to cause some trouble there. And I thought Broncos went toe-to-toe with them in the first half. I thought they really matched the Raiders and matched their intensity to get up 8-6 at halftime. But as well, Broncos lost Turpin to a broken hand midway through that first half, or just after that midway mark of that first half. And while it had seemed to be okay up until half time, what had happened was he actually derailed them. But I don't understand the Broncos. I mean, they came out a whole different team in that second half, and Raiders got that roll on. And when Raiders are at home and they get that roll on, it's very, very near impossible for them to be stopped. And as I said, they got that roll on and they just carved up the Broncos. And I thought that Raiders really stepped it up in that second half and really broke away from the Broncos in that game. But I think it gives credit to a few players, but I think one that stood out for me was Johnny Bateman, Big Johnny. Now, a try, 13 runs, 143 metres, a line break, a try assist, a tackle break, 2 offloads and 33 tackles. A monster effort, especially coming back from injury as well. And again, Payne Haas, 21 runs, 192 metres, 80 post-contact metres, a line break assist with 6 tackle breaks, 4 offloads and 45 tackles in a 70-minute performance. And as I said, he's only one of the 2 or 3 players that are actually trying at the moment. And it's going to be very interesting when Payne Haas actually gets suspended for these next 2 weeks. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens there. But look, as I said, Raiders dominated 36 points to 8 and gave more problems there for the Broncos. Now, moving over to the Sunday games, the Knights 26 defeating the Sea Eagles 24. And again, the Sea Eagles shot out of the blocks, got out to a quick 12-0 lead. That first try by Cade Cuss, by the way, was absolutely beautiful. For that centre to actually bump it in, Brad Parker, sorry, I forgot his name. For Brad Parker to actually bat the ball back in and for Cuss to get onto it, stay within inches of the touchline and put the kick in and score, I thought that was very, very, very good try. One I watched many, many times. Now, Knights fought their way back because Manly made way too many errors. And look, I do feel for him. Brendan Elliott got off with an ACL injury, which moved Ruben Garrick to fullback. And Ruben Garrick, every time I've seen him play fullback, hasn't been good. And it was the same case on Sunday, unfortunately. Made too many errors. Didn't play that well, which allowed the Knights to get back in. I thought, the Sea Eagles did stay in the fight, considering they didn't have their 2 of their starting props in Marty Tapau and Adam Fanua-Blake playing. I thought that the Sea Eagles did put up a decent fight. Well, look, as I said, Newcastle's backline really stepped up and really played a solid game and rebounding from that slow start to end up taking the game 26-24. Now, Des Hasler wasn't really pleased with the 11-3 penalty count and made a point of it in his press conference. And look, he was right. I mean, 11 penalties to 3, and very unlucky for Des. And to only lose by 2 points, I thought Sea Eagles played with a lot of heart and a lot of grit, but unfortunately, their season's hanging by a thread at the moment. So, interesting to see what happens there. I'm not sure if anyone saw it. I'm not going to post it up here, but Joel Thompson's tongue, when it was cut, just took it out of me. I thought it was just disgusting. But credit to him, he played the whole 80 minutes with it, and it's all repaired, and I think he's been named this week as well. So he's a fighter, Joel Thompson. I think just trying to bow out in a good way before he heads off to the Super League. But standouts for me, Callum Ponga, 2 line break assists, 2 try assists, and 7 tackle breaks, making 18 runs for 198 metres as well. Another big effort from him. Now, David Clemmer, 20 runs, 184 metres, a tackle break, 3 offloads, and 41 tackles. He's been fantastic for the Knights, and he has been their main man in the front row. Jacob and Daniel Saifidi have done well as well, but I really think Clemmer has just been fantastic since he's joined the Knights, and especially this year, he's had such a phenomenal impact for that side and playing a lot of 80-minute games as well. But for the Manly Sea Eagles, I thought Taniela Paseka played a very good game. 14 runs, 160 metres with a line break assist, 2 try assists, 3 tackle breaks, 3 offloads and 28 tackles. A monster effort from him. He played so well, and definitely one that Des Hasler can count on and keep in his side when injuries like this occur, and keep him consistently on that team. So I thought they played out of their skin and they did really well. Now, the last game of the round, the Tigers 29 defeating the Dogs 28. Now, it was stock standard Tigers. They shot out to a 22-6 lead. But how good was Benji Marshall? I mean, those 3 try assists and that 40-20 in the beginning, beautiful. I haven't seen a more beautiful 40-20 in the last 3 odd years, minimum. It was beautiful. It was so good to watch. He played out of his skin. Didn't know if it was 18-year-old Benji Marshall running around like he did in the grand final in 2005, but he played so well. And he really lifted that side. You know, they got up 22-6 against the Dogs. Dogs had another slow start. Again, we keep chasing, and we never set that lead, which is unfortunate. Now, we got close, but we didn't win. And I just feel for Steve Georgalis in his coaching record, because he just stinks at the moment with that many close losses. But look, the Bulldogs did fight back. They did dig deep, to get there 28-22. But again, poor defence with Lafai coming in and allowing Leilua with Norfoluma against Montoya in a 2-on-1 situation. Wasn't much he could do there for him to crash over. And then for Brooks to get that field goal, obviously with a minute to go, just destroyed the Bulldogs' confidence there with a minute and played out the game and won it. So the Bulldogs really need to dig in and have that attitude to win games like that. Again, another winnable game. Can't believe we lost it. And it just shows to me that Tigers, as I've said many times before, nowhere near ready for the finals, because they'll just get chomped in the first week. But look, their players did step up. As I said, Benji Marshall with 3 try assists and a beautiful 40-20. But to go with that, Josh Aloye, 18 runs, 209 metres, 3 tackle breaks and offloaded 36 tackles, which is a big effort. Good to see Luke Garner score 2 more tries as well to add to his tally. And a decent player he's been for the Tigers, been in and out of the squad recently. But I thought David Norfoluma was the best on field. A try, 21 runs, 257 metres, with 3 line breaks, a line break assist, a tackle break and an offload. A big effort for those that play Supercoach. He scored 134, I believe, which levels to 268, which definitely helped me get over the line in that one. But look, he played so well, and he's been fantastic this year again, and probably will take out Winger of the Year for sure. I don't think anyone will be close to it. Only one I could think would be close would be Josh Mansour, but apart from that, I don't think anyone else. But I want to talk about the debutant. For the Bulldogs, debuted Matt Dury. And he's been a junior in the dog system for a little while. He has played for Australia and played for New South Wales in the junior rep teams. And he's been a phenomenal player, one to watch for a while. But I thought he was fantastic. 10 runs, 110 metres, a try, 2 tackle breaks or offload and 21 tackles for his first hit out. And that support player went forward and made that break, and he was there to support him and run that 45 odd metres. Was a good effort from him, and it was good to see him get his first try, and I'm looking forward to seeing him in first grade more often. And probably what was the only shining light from that game against the Tigers. So, but look, those were the games for round 14. And again, another very interesting round, which made some changes on the ladder, and looking to see how round 15 will go. Just before we get there though, news around the NRL world. Now, we take things back from last week, and there's quite a lot to get through once again. In the world of NRL, it just doesn't slow down. So join me in this week. So Moses Mbye has been linked to the Gold Coast Titans, and the Tigers had agreed to pay out $400,000 of his $850,000 salary. The Titans seemed pretty keen on him. They wanted to use him at hooker in the halves, and he's got that experience in those many positions. Now, Mbye actually sat down with Maguire and spoke at training and confirmed that he wants to stay and be part of the rebuild. So it doesn't seem as if he may be leaving, but the Tigers still need to get rid of some players due to players like Mbye, Packer, Reynolds on really big money and past their peak. So be interesting to see what the Tigers do there. But Mbye has confirmed that he will stay, and Maguire has backed him to stay as well. So only a matter of time to see if he actually stays or if he actually does go to the Titans. Now, Kane Evans, as I mentioned last week, made it official, signed a 2-year deal with the Warriors. He's put pen to paper. He'll be there till the end of 2022. Now, Ewan Aiken has confirmed on Instagram that he has signed with the Warriors on a 3-year deal. Now, the Warriors are just putting the paperwork together and should be finalising that shortly. But Ewan Aiken has come out, said the Dragons didn't offer him a contract for next year, and he's taken the opportunity to play for the Warriors on a 3-year deal. Now, the Roosters and the Storm have ruled themselves out of signing Tavita Pangai Jr. Trent Robinson said he doesn't really fit into the mould of what they're doing at the Roosters. The Roosters, as you are aware, chased him for a while and really wanted to get him as part of the squad. Unfortunately, at the time he rejected it and extended with the Broncos. He thought by calling Nick Politis a few weeks back would do him any favours, but Trent Robinson absolutely slammed the idea and said he's not part of what we're trying to do at the moment, which would have been disappointing for TPJ to hear. But there's still no shortage of clubs that TPJ will be able to sign with should that opportunity arise. Now, Adam Elliott has re-signed with the Bulldogs for 3 years. He was genuinely considering going to the Warriors, but with all the uncertainty happening with the Warriors for next year, whether they're going to be based in Australia due to COVID-19 or if they're going to be based in New Zealand, he wanted that security and didn't know what was going on. He rejected the offer from the Warriors, unfortunately, and for himself re-signed 3 years with the Bulldogs, which is a good signing for their pack, for the Dogs pack, and one player that I reckon will get better under Trent Barrett. So he's on for another 3 years. Now, it was reported last week that the Cowboys and the Warriors were assessing the availability of Des Hasler to leave Manly and coach their squad. Now, Manly have since sat down and negotiating with Des Hasler a contract extension to keep him at the club for another few more years. So it looks like Hasler won't be going anywhere, and the Warriors have since signed Nathan Brown, while the Cowboys are still looking for a replacement. And speaking of that, John Cartwright has actually put himself in the frame to coach the NRL side. He has been coaching for a while, since he left the Titans back in 2011 or 2012 back then. So he's really looking for another crack at coaching an NRL squad, and he has put himself in a decent position to coach the Cowboys. So just wait for it to see and how that goes. Now, a report came out that Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and Tohu Harris were linked to rugby union, and that came about because there was that guarantee that they would be back in New Zealand. Now, it would mean that both of these players would have to sacrifice the last year of the remaining deals. However, they both have come out and have denied that, and they are staying put with the Warriors. They both have contract. Tohu Harris off contract next year, and RTS, I believe, in another 2 years. But the real reason they were attracted to it was because of the opportunity to play for the All Blacks in 2024. And with RTS having played schoolboy union in school, there's always that attraction to go back. And he almost went last time before he re-signed for 4 years. So there is that potential opportunity he may leave the NRL. Whether he cut his deal short, they don't know, but it's also for the opportunity to play in the World Cup for the All Blacks. So watch that space. Nothing happening for it at the moment, my sources tell me, but don't be surprised if they do leave some stages in their career. Now, as I mentioned a few weeks ago, and it was finally confirmed last week that Shannon Boyd has retired from the NRL and was released by the Gold Coast Titans effective immediately. And he has now gone and, as I said, was retired and is now moved back to his hometown, where he'll continue to operate his business and just do farming over there. So all the best to Shannon Boyd. Now, Paul McGregor and the Dragons decided to part ways, with Dean Young being the caretaker coach to the end of the year. Now, Paul McGregor did come out in the afternoon of Thursday's announcement and said that the biggest reason that he had to leave was because he could not choose his squad. And that was the real point in that, with the management choosing the squad week in, week out and not being able to make the changes he wanted to make. Unfortunately, it was the end of the road for Paul McGregor, and he decided to part ways and just call it quits with 6 odd weeks to go. Now, Ronaldo Militado, for the Sharks winger, who has been phenomenal since he's been there, has re-signed with the Sharks for 3 years, which is an exciting coup for the Sharks, which continues their re-signings over the last 5 or 6 weeks. Good to see him stick there. Cade Cust, the stand-in 5'8" for Dylan Walker, has re-signed for 2 years with the Sea Eagles. And again, he's been playing great football, and it's good to see him rewarded with a new contract. So congratulations to him. Now, the Dragons are targeting 2 players in particular. They're trying to get Jack Bird onto their books, he was a junior back in the day, and they're trying to get him back in and want him to be a part of what they're doing there at the Dragons. And they're also targeting and making a big play for Christian Welch, who has been playing so well for the Melbourne Storm. Now, Welch, not sure if you guys were aware, but he was meant to be at Parramatta this year. He had agreed to a 3-year deal before doing his ACL and obviously making him sit out the rest of 2019. And ever since then, Eels pulled the plug on that deal, unfortunately, and it wasn't meant to be. But Dragons are targeting Welch, seeing that he's back to career best form and making a big play for him. The Storm do want to keep him and are looking to table a 2 to 3 year deal. So watch this space on that one. Now, the NRL were investigating Brett Finch for breaking the COVID bubble. He was seen hanging out with the boys of YKTR on the Thursday night before jumping back into the bubble on Friday to be in the coaching box for the Warriors. He's being investigated. There's nothing has come about it since, and we're yet to hear any results. Now, the Warriors have signed Albert Hopewadi on a loan deal for 4 weeks, taking them off the Sea Eagles, which gives them Warriors a bit more depth in the backs for the next month or so, until the Sea Eagles do request him that he comes back. And with Sea Eagles having an injury crisis of their own, I'm surprised they actually let Hopewadi go. So it's a decent pickup for the Warriors, who is potentially looking to make his debut there. We're just meant to see what happens there. Now, it's been discussed that Curtis Rona is looking at being a potential replacement for Josh Addo-Carr. Now, as you all know, Josh Addo-Carr is looking to return to Sydney from the 2021 season, with Bulldogs and Tigers heavily interested in pursuing him. Now, the Melbourne do want to play in return, and they believe that now that Josh Addo-Carr has sorted out his management issues and has the same manager as Curtis Rona wants to come back to the NRL. I mentioned a little while ago he made a call to the Roosters to see if he would be able to get a spot there for $650,000 a season, and the Roosters laughed and said no way. So he's looking to come back to the NRL, and he has signed, as I said, with he's looking as a potential replacement for Addo-Carr on the wing there for the Melbourne Storm. So could be a decent pickup for them if they choose to go down that road and get him in. He's only 28, 29. He's played for the Wallabies and he's had a decent career in Union, but he's ready to come back to the NRL and leave the crazy weather over in England. So again, something to watch out for, and he could be the perfect replacement for Addo-Carr so that he's able to go back to Sydney. Now, Nathaniel Roach, the Warriors hooker, hasn't been mentioned in a while. He has been struggling to come back through the different injuries that he's had over the last few years. Now, he has been told by the Warriors that they will not be extending his contract. He's put a feeder out to NRL clubs to see who would be available for his services. Expect the Tigers to look into that. Obviously, losing Harry Grant and Jacob Little being a little bit injury prone, especially just coming back from a successful ACL injury. And Josh Reynolds on the books as well, more of a half than a hooker. And with Billy Walters injured, he could be a fourth string potential option for the Tigers. But at this point in time, he has been speaking to a few clubs and he's just waiting to see what pans out with management and where he'll go from there. Now, Trent Barrett is looking to bolster up the Dogs forward pack and get a bit more direction in where he wants to do with the Bulldogs in the next few years. He has targeted Manase Fainu, who is currently waiting to hear from his sentence regarding the stabbing of someone outside a church in the Liverpool area. Due to the court dates being dragged on due to COVID-19, they've had to postpone the court dates to about October, November this year. So hopefully there's no more postponing for them. They can get the result he needs to figure out whether it's going to be his career and see. But he's actually under the no stand down policy for the NRL. They're also targeting Corey Waddell and Jack Gosiowski. They're targeting them to bolster the forward pack as well. Now, interesting one here, the Warriors were told that they needed to part ways with Vodafone as their major sponsor. They've been a major sponsor for them for the last 22 years. And they've been told they need to part ways because it clashes with Telstra. And with Telstra being the main sponsor for the NRL, with the NRL Premiership, they have told the NRL that it's either us or them, and the NRL have decided to tell the Warriors that and Vodafone themselves they need to cut that association. It wasn't until today Telstra came out and said that obviously that Warriors have made a lot of circumstances and now wasn't the time to make a critical decision like that, and have advised that should the Vodafone want to continue sponsoring the Warriors, they can see out their contract till 2022 and then rediscuss and renegotiate what will happen then. It looks like that will happen, and by 2022, the end of that season, it looks like Vodafone Warriors will be changed and Vodafone will no longer be their major sponsor. Now, the Roosters have confirmed the Sydney Football Stadium will be played. They will play all their home games there for the next 25 years, which is a big deal for them and shows that they're going to be owning that home ground for, again, the next while, which will see a lot of interesting games being played there as well, and another beautiful stadium to be built by 2022, I'm hearing. So it's a good pick up there for the Roosters, and good to have that home ground advantage solidified in for the next 20 to 25 years, which is good. Now, West Tigers legend Chris Lawrence has announced his retirement from the game. He's played over 250 games for the Tigers. He has played for Australia, and he's been a phenomenal player for the game over the last 15 years, and he's been so good to watch. He's announced his retirement at the end of the 2020 season. So all the best to you, Chris Lawrence. It's been a pleasure watching you for many years and seeing you come back from many adversities as well, with many serious injuries, with that jaw from last year and a few years ago with your hip. But it's been a pleasure to watch you, mate, and all the best in retirement. Now, Broncos have been fined $75,000, and 10 of the players were fined 5% of their salaries, which was in total $160,000 fine for breaking the COVID and Project Apollo rules that the NRL has set in place. Now, the club copped a $75,000 fine, which they accepted and are not looking to challenge that. Now, the 10 players got fined 5% of their salaries, and the players include Ethan Bollamore, Josh James, Tyson Gamble. Now, these three players are development players, while the rest of the following players I'm about to name are part of the full-time NRL squad. Keenan Palacia, Sean O'Sullivan, Corey Oates, David Fafita, Corey Pay, Jake Turpin, and Katoni Staggs, all fined 5% of their salaries for being part of that group that went and had that lunch over at the pub, which is disappointing for the Broncos in what's already been a very crap season for them. And the news is only getting worse. And the one breaking news from tonight, Kevin Proctor, again, has been suspended for 4 weeks. They were looking at getting him for 4 to 6 weeks or 4 to 8 weeks, but due to his very clean record and only having one incident in the last 8-9 years, they downgraded his suspension by 25%, and he's been looking at 4 weeks suspended. Gives him an opportunity to play the last few games to potentially seek a contract. My sources tell me that Tigers have sounded him out as a good second-row replacement. Just a matter of time to see what happens there, but he has been suspended for 4 weeks for that bite on Shaun Johnson. Now, Shaun Johnson came to the judiciary via Zoom tonight and defended Kevin Proctor. Unfortunately, Shaun Johnson's actions on the field, no matter what he tried to do to take it back, they were too clear, and that's where the judiciary went. And it took him about 3.5 hours to decide that, make that decision, but he was found guilty and will be suspended for the next 4 weeks. Now, one thing I want to address in my rant for the week, in Stats Rant of the Week, is on Friday night between the Penrith and the Warriors, there have been 7 or 8 guys that were kicked out of the stadium for racial abuse. Now, it's something I want to address because there are a lot of people out there that are racist, and targeting people like Brent Naden, of course, because he's Aboriginal, they believe because you're Aboriginal, you're an easy target. I think it's pretty pathetic and a low dog act to be standing in the crowd, not even just say you're Penrith supporters that bagging out one of their own. I thought it was pretty poor effort from them. They're looking at lifetime bans from the NRL, and so they should be. They should never be able to be allowed to come back and play and be part. Sorry, not play and be able to spectate the game of rugby league live. There was videos released as well of them making bad jokes as well, which again, I don't understand the point. I don't see the reason for it. I don't see the reason for racism in the game. A lot of those people do have those opinions and they keep it to themselves. Don't know why it needs to be out on social media, and calling Brent Naden a lot of the things that they called him was pretty disgusting. And I do feel for Brent Naden, and I'm glad that he went and handled it appropriately. But again, it's just a bunch of idiots going around acting all tough when really it's very, very sad to see. And it does affect the players' welfare. We've seen it over many years, and we've seen it in different codes as well, all over the world. And it's one thing that does need to stop. And just a credit to Brent Naden. Mate, keep your head up, keep doing what you're doing. You're playing out of your skin, and any trolls like that, I don't think you need to worry about. So my rant of the week, no, we need to end racism in the game. It does need to stop. And if you have any of those opinions that are very controversial, might as well just keep it to yourself. Now let's get into the round 15 talking points and the tips for the next week. coming up. Now, the Eagles will take on the Storm and to start off around 15. Now, the Eagles will be 1-17 for this clash. The Storm, Sendor Earl will replace Suliasi Vunivalu, who has broken his jaw, will be out for the next 4 to 6 weeks on the wing. And Del Finucane tore his calf at training yesterday. He'll be out for 4 to 6 weeks as well. 6 weeks with that calf injury. Now, Tino Fa'asu Malawi will start at lock, and Albert Vete will be joining the bench. Now, Jerome Hughes has been named. He had been pulling up sore after that game against the Roosters. And another one of Matty John's sons, Cooper Johns, will be on standby for that game should Hughes not pull up. Now, they are playing at Bankwest, and it's going to be a tough game. I think losing Suliasi Vunivalu and Dale Finucane are big losses. If they do go ahead and lose Jerome Hughes, I'm going to have to go the Eels. But look, now the Eels are 1-17 and they'll look to be rebounding from last week. I still think I'm going to tip them as a bit of a shock and only tip them by 4 points. So it'll be Eels by 4 for me. Now, a good game coming up, the Panthers taking on the Sharks. Both sides will be 1-17. And expect a late change from Sharks with Jack Williams starting and Toby Rudolph being moved to the bench. Now, the last time that these teams versed, Penrith beat them 56-24. The Sharks are yet to beat anyone in the top 8, which is a damning statistic. They can destroy all the bottom 8 teams, which is why they're sitting pretty well on the ladder. Have not beaten a top 8 team as of yet. I reckon the Penrith are due to lose at any moment. I don't think it'll be this week. I reckon Panthers will win by 6, but I can also expect the Sharks upset as well. So it'll be one game to definitely tune into. Now, the Broncos will be taking on the Dragons in the second Friday night clash. The Broncos, so Payne Haas is suspended for 2 weeks, which is a huge loss for them. On top of everything that's happened already this year and with all the injuries that they've got as well, they have lost their best forward for 2 weeks for that crusher tackle. And Tom Flegler has also injured his shoulder and will need surgery. It looks like he'll be out for the remainder of 2020. He wants to continue to play on. It's just a matter of time to see what happens there. Now, they're both of the players without. Now, Joe Alpha-Hangawi and Reece Kennedy would start in the front row. Now, Anthony Milford was meant to be ruled out for a month, has been back after 2 weeks, coming back in the halves with Brodie Croft dropped in a very interesting change there. Now, Jordan Carr, who plays his first game in a very long time and will take the place of Jesse Arthurs in the back line, and Herbie Farnworth will move into the wing, and Carr will be playing in the centres. Now, Isaac Luke will start at hooker for Jake Turpin, who's broken his hand for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And Ethan Bullimore and Jimmy Hopewadi will be joining the bench for this game. Now, the Dragons, Dean Young's first appointment has made one change with Paul Vaughan in the side, taking the spot of Tristan Saylor. Paul Vaughan will be back into the NRL COVID bubble after having to be quarantined for 2 weeks. I think with the way Dragons played last week and the determination and with a lot more injuries for the Broncos, I'm going to have to say the Dragons by 12. I reckon the Dragons will take this one out and will give Dean Young a good start in his coaching career. Now, we've got the Titans coming up against the Raiders on what would be the first of 3 great games on Saturday. Now, a lot of changes made by the Titans here. Anthony Don and Philip Sammy are back from injury. Young Tony Mapea will be moving to the centres, and Dale Copley has torn his pec, so he'll be out for the season, which will then move Corey Thompson to the reserves, unfortunately. Not sure why he hasn't been playing much football this year with the Titans, but that's one to watch out for. Now, Jai Arrow is out of this game, as I mentioned earlier, with Jared Wallace will be starting at prop, taking the spot of Moeaki Fotuaika, who will be playing lock, and Sam Stone will be playing on the bench. Now, with Kevin Proctor now suspended, they may look to Bo Firma to take that spot in the team there for the Titans. And just taking a quick look here, there's also a potential chance that with Bo Firma already in the jersey 16, looks like Joel Whitbread will be joining the bench now that Proctor has been suspended. For the Raiders, Hudson Young has been named to return to the starting locks, and Ryan Sutton will be moving to the bench, and the only change for the Raiders. Now, in this game, I do believe that stuff is going to be, I think losing Jai Arrow and Dale Copley and Kevin Proctor is a lot of experience I'll be losing. I'm going to go the Raiders by 16. I thought the way the Raiders played in that second half was just exceptional football, and I do believe that John Bateman will definitely look to terrorise that Titans defence. So it's going to be Raiders for me by 16. Now, the Tigers will take on the Roosters this week, and the Tigers are 1-17, but do be cautioned as well that Alex Twal has been named as the 18th man, could potentially play this week. If he doesn't play, he may be moved to next week with Harry Grant, so watch that space there. For the Roosters, Brett Morris and Jared Hargreaves will come back from injury, which is very good, and they'll take the place of debutant Christian Tuipulotu and Mitch Orbison, who has fractured his wrist. Nate Butcher will then move to the second row to take his spot there. Now, Lachlan Lamb and Luke Keary are out with that ankle syndesmosis injury and Keary with his ribs, with the new halves pairing of Drew Hutchinson and Kyle Flanagan taking the reins there. And Freddie Lussick, who has been talked about a lot this year in terms of taking that spot in hooker to replace Sam Verrills, will finally make his debut off the bench for the Roosters. Now, taking a look at this game, I don't know. I want to say the Tigers, but I do think Roosters do get some reinforcements back. I think with the new halves pairing of Hutchinson and Flanagan back in the side, it's actually going to be a tough one. And I'm going to have to say, the Roosters. I think they're going to rebound from that loss, even though they have still a lot of injuries. They still have a lot of decent players stepping up for them. I think the Tigers are the biggest faders in the NRL, and these fast starts don't really last. So it's a tough call making, but I think I'm going to back the Roosters for this one. Now, the Rabbitohs will take on the Sea Eagles in the last of the Saturday night games. Now, for the Rabbitohs, Liam Knight has been suspended for a week, which will get Bailey Suinen to the starting team, and Jack Johns will play his third game off the bench. For the Sea Eagles, again, a confirmed ACL injury to Brendan Elliott will mean that Ruben Garrick will go to fullback, which I don't think is a good decision, seeing as he hasn't been playing that good at fullback. But I'm not Des Hasler, so it's all good there. So he'll go to fullback. George Tufua has been recalled on the wing after he was rested last week. Sources coming to me told me he was dropped from last week from very poor form. Now, it would be good to see Marty Tapau. He's back at prop. He will take that spot in the forwards. He'll take the spot of Jake Trbojevic, who'll be moved back to lock. Corey Woodall will go back to the bench as he will move to the starting side, and Jack Gorisaki going out of the squad altogether. Now, again, with more injuries, but they do get some reinforcements back, I am going to say the Sea Eagles. I don't think Rabbitohs have really convinced me much this season, and I do think that if there's a game that will be win, it'll be the Sea Eagles. They'll be my lucky tip of the week. I'm going to go Sea Eagles by 4, but I do expect as well Rabbitohs to come out on top convincingly. But Sea Eagles by 4 for me. The 2 o'clock game, Bulldogs versus the Warriors, and good to have some reinforcements back for the Bulldogs. Will Hopperwhite will turn at fullback with Nick Meaney going back onto the wing. And I just want to say that Nick Meaney's been playing outstanding football since he's been moved to fullback, and a good change made by George Arliss there. But he's now been shifted to the wing, taking the spot of Marcelo Montoya. Now, Jeremy Marshall-King, Aidan Tolman, and Matt Dury will move into the starting side this week. Now, Sione Katoa and Luke Thompson, the English lock, has been moved to the bench after this week, and they've put Josh Jackson at lock, with Dylan Harper being suspended, and Jake Averillo will make his return from a hip injury onto the bench there. Now, for the Warriors, Hazy Perham will get his first game back since round 4 this year, with Patrick Herbert being injured and pushing Adam Pompey over to the wing. Now, Elise Katoa is suspended this week, with Isaiah Papali'i moving to the second row and Jack Murchie being recalled up onto the bench. If there's a game that we can win, I want to say it's this game, like I do every week. I'm going to go Bulldogs by 6, and I'm expecting a very, very tough game in this one. Could go either way. I want to go Bulldogs by 6 for this game. And the last game of the round, the Knights taking on the North Queensland Cowboys to finish off round 15. Now, Daniel Saifidi has unfortunately injured his knee once again, will be out for 1 to 3 weeks with a PCL injury. His brother Jacob will start at prop, and Pasami Solo will return from suspension onto the bench. And for the Cowboys, Ruben Cotter will take the place of Jacob Granville on the bench, the only change for the Cowboys. I'm going to go the Knights this game. They've finally won 2 on the trot, and I reckon they'll build that confidence, especially playing at Newcastle in a day game. Callum Ponga, I reckon, will just beat them all over the park, and will be a different result to when they last played, when Cowboys won 36-22. Now, guys, thank you so much for joining me on another episode of League Chat with the Stat. As I said, you can continue to reach me on that email, leaguechatwiththestat@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, so like that page and get it sharing around to all your friends and family, and all of your different Facebook groups. Now, we are also on YouTube, and been seeing a lot of views on that recently, so I do appreciate your support. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Click the bell icon to be notified when a video comes up, and we can always get that organised for you guys. And yeah, that's all from me. Thank you so much for joining me again this week. You have yourselves a good week. Enjoy round 15, and we'll see you back next week. Take care.